Where do you come to get all your news? Washington Informer. Where do you come to get all your news? Washington Informer.
Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. It's 2025. Welcome to 2025. Can you believe it? Someone said the other day, I mean, this is like Star Wars times because I remember thinking 2025. Well, let me say this. I just celebrated a birthday. And 2050, even though I'll be really old, is not out of the question. It's not out of the question. So, these years are ticking by, ticking by, ticking by. And I'm just so glad that we're able to spend it together. Welcome to Let's Talk on Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rolark Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. I hope, I hope you enjoyed the holidays. Christmas, as you know, we talked a lot about. We talked about Hanukkah. We talked about Kwanzaa. The last day of Kwanzaa was on the 1st. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. And of course, a happy new year. I know a lot of folks stayed in on the 1st, and it makes sense to do that because, safety is most important, but also staying warm and staying close to family and friends, I think was a great idea. But if you did get out to celebrate and join family and friends in really festive activities, I hope they were safe and memorable. Memorable. Because this year's going to go by quickly, and I just hope that it will be some pleasant memories from the night, from that New Year's night and the days ahead. Um, Also, as you know, we took a little bit of time off, so we hope that you enjoyed our pre-programmed episodes over the past 2 Fridays. We had, I think, a wonderful, great interview with Pierpont Mobley. You all got a chance to see the interview we had tried to do with him earlier in the year, and then he came back, and we were able to sit down. And what we are launching is our new studio. Not in there yet, but we'll be getting there. But we got a chance to test it with him, and the program I thought was great as we talked about his book, The Black Side of the White House. Great memories of his time working under I think it was four presidents over many, many years. And so we're starting off to 2025 optimistically, looking for some wonderful things to happen. I just happened to glance over and see my little spelling bee back there. I don't know if you all can see him, but that means that next couple of weeks we're going to be talking about the DC and the Prince George's spelling bees. Children are out there now getting those words together and practicing, and we want to applaud them for even studying during the holidays. So you'll see more of that little guy over the weeks to come. And as you know, coming up, we've got some interesting things happening in the District of Columbia. Of course, the Martin Luther King holiday. We'll be talking about the activities that are going to be taking place here and other places around the region. We've got marches, of course, and demonstrations coming to Washington, D.C. It's going to be a busy time. And of course, the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States. And we will leave that there. So, with us today, we are very excited to get some words of encouragement and outlook for 2025 with Reverend Tony Lee, pastor of Community of Hope AME Church. We're really excited to hear what's kind of in his mind and his vision and his heart as it relates to not only his church members, but our entire community. He actually was in a front row seat during the past presidential election and many before then, and also county elections. And so I know he has a great perspective on what we can work towards and should be working towards in the new year. And then we'll have Washington Informer managing editor and some of our reporters. Misha Green is our editor and some of our reporters to talk to us about their coverage in 2025. We are still here. I always like to show that copy of the Washington Informer, which I'll pick up in a minute. And so we hope to be here leading the news with some strong coverage of what's happening not only here in the DMV, but nationally and across the country. Of course, with our partners, Word in Black. If you have not heard of Word in Black, go to the website, wordinblack.com. At some point, we'll have our managing editor of Word in Black on as well. And that's kind of like our national news service and partnership that we have. And we've some great news coming out of there. We're also going to have Rafael Ulloma, who is Deputy Publisher and Executive Vice President of Communications for El Tiempo Latino, who will be joining us to talk about how his newspaper plans to cover the new White House administration. So before we get started, got to pick up an issue. I mean, we may have all been on the holiday, but we kept publishing, and this is this week's issue of the Washington Informer. So I hope you get a chance to pick it up. And it's interesting because the latest news, I mean, folks were out yesterday. The mayor always starts off the year with her Fit DC run, and hundreds of people were out there in that cold yesterday at Anacostia Park. Most important thing is we were there too. So pick up a copy. And if you haven't been able to pick up a copy, you can access the digital copy anytime, anywhere by visiting our website at washingtoninformer.com. And that's anywhere in the US or around the world. You can pick up a copy or read it online at washingtoninformer.com. For daily updates on what's happening in the DMV, consider becoming a subscriber. We would love for you to just go to the website. You can check those boxes. Those are some of our newsletters. But we send out Win Daily, which is an update of all the news that we've reported on for the day. And that newsletter will come right into your inbox. We don't want to send you junk. We want to send you news you can use. So we hope that you will subscribe to all of our e-editions. And all we ask for is your email address. And that's it. Also, you can follow us on all social media for updates as well. And while you're enjoying today's episode, we'd love for you to help us spread the word. Share this broadcast on your social media channels and connect with us on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Whew, we're all there. We're there. And so, no matter where you are, if you're scrolling through, just kind of do a little search on, or what is it? Become a follower of us on those platforms so that you don't have to search and you can follow all of our latest news and some of the things, some updates that we'll be bringing to you all throughout the year. This is our 60th anniversary. The Washington Informer is in its 60th year. We've got a gala planned in March, and as time gets closer, we will be sharing more information with you on that. And as a matter of fact, I want to thank any and all of you all who responded to our appeal to support local journalism, to support our writers, to support the work we do here at the Informer with your donations and contributions over the past month. We deeply, deeply appreciate your support. So before we move forward, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Prince George's County is encouraging residents to compost their Christmas trees during curbside collection between January 6th and January 27th of this year, respectively. The county said residents should place their undecorated, unbagged, and live Christmas trees on the curb at 6 a.m. on their regular yard trim collection days. And it's important to remove ornaments and to avoid leaving artificial trees, as both can create problems for recycling centers hoping to turn the trees into mulch. Desmond Gladden, an environmental planner with Prince George's County Recycling, commented saying, quote, "Eventually the public will be able to buy back the recycling in the form of mulch, as much of it is sold to nurseries throughout the county." District Lawyer Earl Chico Horton III, who is used to big business deals primarily in the real estate and energy sectors, will be bringing his skills as the new chairman of the D.C. Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Some of his clients include Citigroup Global Markets, Goldman Sachs, and J.P. Morgan Chase, as Horton has been involved in billions of dollars of financial transactions over his 20-year career. Horton says his plans for the organization is that he wants small businesses to be involved in the formulation and implementation of policy positions that will be presented to governmental bodies. He also wants these organizations that will help small businesses get more district government contracts. Matthew M. Graves, the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, has announced his resignation effective January 16th after more than 3 years in the position. In 2024, the District of Columbia experienced a 35% reduction in violent crimes, the lowest level in 50 years under his tenure. His office employed data-driven methods to target repeat offenders and dismantle criminal networks responsible for violence in neighborhoods such as MLK and Malone, as well as Potomac Gardens and Southeast. Bridget M. Fitzpatrick, who's currently the Principal Assistant U.S. Attorney, will assume the role of Acting U.S. Attorney after Graves steps down.
Thank you, Curtis. And now we will turn to our first guest, Reverend Tony Lee, pastor of Community Hope AME Church in Prince George's County. Reverend Lee, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you so much. It's always a great pleasure to be here. And I need to say, just off the top, as a Southeast baby, as a Xenia Street baby, um, first want to shout out the legacy of your parents, your mother and your father. Their names rung out for us so much as a child. But I want to celebrate how you walk in that legacy and how your name in our community rings out as well. And so I just want to celebrate you at the top of the year just for the impact that you have in the region, and just want to tell you how much we value you and your voice.
Well, must have been something about that Xenia in Foxhall that, some good water or something was going through there because I want to actually kind of say the same thing to you. I mean, you have done so much with your church. You've done so much with just working in the community. Your voice is well respected, not only locally, but nationally. And wow, how long have you been in the ministry, Reverend Lee?
Wow. I started in the ministry in 1992. So you can count the years.
I
I get
was,
counting the
well,
years.
I'm slow now with math, but I was gonna try. I don't know what that means. And not only the years, but the age, of
Mhm.
I mean, when you started and how did you decide to go into ministry? Because it's a family endeavor for you all.
Well, and I think what's interesting, the blessing is I was raised at the Paramount Baptist Church under back then it was Reverend McCombs, Reverend Aaron McCombs, and then Ishmael Shaw. And that was my foundation, right? But as a young person, of course, I strayed and I kind of went my way, and then was blessed to in my young adult years come up upon the Ebenezer AME Church with Dr. Granger and Dr. Joanne Browning, and there just really reconnected with the Lord. And it was in there that I just really realized my sense of purpose and direction, and realized that all the things I was doing that was so counterproductive to community and society, that God had a better plan for me, and had a better work for me. And it was out of there that we just saw kind of what the Lord was able to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. And now, tell everyone where your church is located because you were in that fabulous space at at the mall,
Mhm.
and now you're in a fabulous space at a school. Just tell us what's happening with uh, Community of Hope.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we started in the Legend nightclub. Then we've been in Iverson Mall for about 15 years. And currently we're in the Suitland High School in the auditorium. And we meet there Sundays at 10 a.m. Right now we have a signed, ratified purchase agreement for the former Macy's in the Hillcrest Heights Shopping Center. And so we are in the midst of working through that deal with some of our partners. And so we are excited about that possibility. So right now we're in Suitland High School as we are finishing locking in that deal for that Macy's and purchasing that Macy's. And so, yeah, we're just so excited about the possibilities and what the future is bringing. And that Macy's won't just for us to do church, but we have a for-profit, nonprofit, faith collaboration that is shaped to turn that Macy's into a whole community resource center. That we've got business partners that will be there. We'll do workforce training, workforce development, small business incubation, mental health services, family services. There'll be a recording studio there, a video studio there, auditorium there. It'll be something that will really be, I tell people the smallest piece of it will be the church.
Yeah.
Everything else, our whole focus is what we can do to help continue to revitalize that community and offer services to the community.
It kind of reminds me of, I say Back to the Future, but I don't even know what that really means. But, I mean, back in the day, the church was the foundation, as
Mhm.
particularly, after the end of slavery and folks were making those migrations and they were moving to new communities. And that's where the base was. And all the resources that our community needed were right there based in our churches. And so you're really going back to doing, well, you haven't stopped because Community Hope has always done this. So, it's just fascinating to me to see that you have not swayed from your mission.
Well, and also, the reality is it's okay to be a copycat if you know which cats to copy. And really, I'm just doing what I've grown up seeing at Paramount Baptist Church in Southeast. That was the center of our community, and it really was a blessing. And everything I grew out of that at Ebenezer AME Church, it was a center of community and was just vital impact in the shaping of Prince George's County. I learned from folks like Reverend Willie Wilson over there at Union Temple, and just sat up under his feet and learned those kinds of people. So it's these models that have really, I'm just copying off of those cats. And so I have to at least be honest enough to acknowledge the fact that I'm not some brilliant guy doing it all of myself, but I'm just learning from the elders and trying to in some way walk faithfully in my season.
You know, I remember us having a conversation right during COVID. You were on, and we were talking the pandemic, and I think, I don't know if I'm correct with this, but I remember you saying that church may not be the same as it was. I mean,
Mm,
because people, some churches never closed,
mm,
and they were able to continue during the pandemic. But this, virtual services and how churches had to pivot. And I'm just saying that to say, I mean, recently I did an article on a church over here in Southeast, over 100 years old. That closed its doors, an
mm,
Episcopal church that
mhm.
closed its doors forever because it just could not recover from COVID and lost so many members. Where are we now? Where are we now with regards to the status of our particularly Black churches? Um, People say that they're, young people aren't in the church and what have you. But I've been to some some churches where the pews are full, and I feel like the oldest person in the room. So, I mean, what is your perception of where we are with regards to the state of the Black church?
I think the church is ever evolving. And I think we're watching just another move along the evolution. I think that we are in the midst of generational shifts. If you look at many of the significant kind of mainstream churches in our region, you're watching transitions in their leadership, in which the leaders who have been leading for just decades are now retiring. And so if you look at a Union Temple for Reverend Dr. Willie Wilson, you now have a Reverend Dr. Anika Wilson who's pastoring. If you look at just various churches throughout the region, you're starting to watch either the transition have happened or are happening. I'm thinking of a Pastor Macklin and the transition that's happening out there, the sanctuary at Kingdom Square. I'm thinking of various churches throughout the region. But what I believe that we're watching is that we are watching a church that we have a vibrant transition. We have a transition of leadership. We have folks who are stepping into the gap, and folks who are ready for this season. The Black church in this region held it down during COVID. During the pandemic, they held it down. And it's incredible because a lot of times the Black church is its worst public relations specialist, that nobody knows all the good things these churches are doing. Nobody hears about all the great work these churches are doing. But churches held it down even when they weren't able to have the doors open. They still functioned online, but not just online, but they were serving people in the community. They were feeding people. They were the safety net for people. And I think we still see that still now is a Black church. And that's what we're going to need right now, especially with the shift in leadership and this shift that's happening in Washington, is that we need the Black church to be the safety net. We need the Black church to be the place where our people can depend on, that center of community. And I believe that we see that right now. And I believe, and I'm seeing that young people are engaged in the church. And I think you're correct. There are a lot of churches in this region that are very relevant. And there are a lot of young people who are at church, who are locked in, who are focused, and are finding their place in their role.
And I think sometimes I wonder if it's the sense of community that people aren't finding in other places, and the church offers that sense of community and fellowship. I mean, it's always been there, but sometimes their parents weren't taking them there, and so they're there kind of finding that on their own, which I think is it's a positive thing. But you mentioned the change in leadership, and I know that you worked really hard and um, in one capacity on on the leadership. But I mean, election night was a shocker to most Americans. Well, I won't say most, to many. Even those who supported the winner, I think were shocked by the results of the election. And the you know, what we began to feel, or what people began to feel as a result of that, sort of a doom and gloom and depression. What do you have to say about that? I mean, how do we approach 2025 in this new leadership?
Well, and I think we need to also be honest, though. It was a shocker. So for me, it was a shocker, but I felt that it was going to be a close election. So it was a shocker in how big the margins were. That was a shocker. But the fact that there was a loss, I don't know, was as big of a shock. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves, even as we're looking at just kind of doing a postmortem or trying to figure out how to move in next seasons, that it's important for us to hold all parties accountable. And and what was happening was that we had this kind of cognitive dissonance, even with folks on the ground. If you talk to folks who are on the ground, and I'm talking about I was all over the nation working to get our dear sister Kamala Harris in. I was all over the nation working. I was on the Kirk Franklin tour. I was speaking before his tour stopped, registering folks to vote. I was working all over our region, trying to get her in, and also our dear sister Angela Also Brooks, who we're grateful that we is now Senator-elect Also Brooks, and we got her in. But one of the things that even on the ground that we were concerned about was this cognitive dissonance, that we had a party that was talking about the lawlessness of the Republicans while being lawless themselves. They were talking about the lawlessness and the challenge of a Republican Party that was going to just, kind of look at all laws and kind of toss them to the side. But our own party was lawless in regards to what was happening in Gaza. Our own party was lying to Congress and misrepresenting information. They were finding out information about the human rights abuses and about the blocking of humanitarian aid, but yet and still we're not giving the respect to our Palestinian American brothers and sisters. Yet and still we're still funding the genocide and the bombings of children and all that was happening. And so I think that we have to at least come to grips with and deal with the fact that we have to hold everybody to bear and hold accountable. Now, I did not want, and so with all of that challenge, I was still working the best I could to help to get our sister in, because I was just concerned about a Trump presidency. With that, though, I think it's important for us in this season to hold a perspective. And our perspective is, as Black people, we've had bad leaders before. As Black people, if we think about the historian Vincent Harding, right? He has a book called There Is a River. And Vincent Harding talks about this river of struggle we've had as Black folks in America, that we've had ups and we've had downs, but we keep on fighting. And I tell folks as a pastor, the same God that was with us before is the same God that can be with us now. And I don't care who's in the White House, as long as I know God is on the throne. And so if we understand that and have a perspective, then it allows us not to get in such a doom and gloom that we feel we're in a situation that we can't make it, because we'd have made it through some rougher times and some harder times. We just know that this is a time in which we have to grab a hold of the tenacity of our foreparents and know that we have what it takes to make it through this time as well.
I want to say preach. I kept wanting to say preach, preach, Reverend Lee, but you're right. You're right. I do want to ask one question. I want to go back to the point of holding people accountable,
Mhm.
because we register, we vote, and then we go back to business as usual. What does holding people accountable look like? What should we be doing?
And so I think it looks like a few things. One, I think so. We do register, we do vote. I think it does mean hard advocacy, even while people are in office. I think it means pushing the levers, and I think that's what was so frustrating for many of us with the Biden-Harris administration, is that there were ways in which we were trying to hold them accountable, and in ways we thought we had influence that we just realized we didn't. And I think that caused a great frustration that I think registered at the polls, not by who folks voted for, but many folks just voted and sat down. And while I don't agree with that, but the couch got their vote. And I think that because if you look at it, that was one of the pieces, was turnout was a major issue for us, right? I think that it's important for us to be looking at and making sure the people we put into office are representing the political and the policies that we put them in the office for. And if they don't, it's important for us to make them feel the weight And if they don't, then it's important for us to put other people in place in spite of them. They need to, there need to be repercussions for not representing us when we put you in office.
So, in addition to the candidates that, I mean, holding candidates accountable, um, for those who just may not be politically inclined, we know that they're out there, but they're people of faith. And so, you talked about all of the events that, or uh, programs that Community of Hope is going to offer. How do you think? What would you say to people about becoming more engaged just within their communities to make life better for each one of us? We we have the organizations that give away the turkeys at Christmas, at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the whatever. But people have needs all year long. So how do we begin to get back to building community through the
And
church?
And I think that's a great question. And I think that in this season, I think that that's the church's strength, especially in this region. As the church is going to need to be that safety net, but also I think the church is going to need to be what I call a community vision center. Church is going to need to be a place where people are able to come and not just have to do what the church does, but the church is a place that deploys people to just empower community. And so, and you've been to my church, and you've been, and you can see at my church on any given Sunday, there are people there who aren't just doing work at Community of Hope proper, but they're running organizations and they're impacting community wherever they are, in the communities they are. So we're giving them the tools, we're giving them the resources, we're giving them the inspiration, we're giving them the hope to then be able to go out and impact right where they are. Because at the end of the day, we're all we've got. And we are in this thing together. And community is what keeps us moving. Community is what keeps us hopeful. It's what keeps us vibrant. And it is important to be able to not kind of be a lone ranger, not just kind of feel like you're off by yourself. But the blessing of church that most people forgot is it is the body of believers. The church is not just the building. That's not the church at all. The church is the fellowship. It is the body of believers. That's why coming to church is not just about coming to a Sunday service. It's about coming together with other people so that folks can check in on you, so that folks can see about you, so that folks can inspire you, so that folks can walk alongside you, so that when you have an idea, you have somebody to bounce it off of, and somebody who can walk alongside of you and help you bring it to fruition so that our community can be better.
Well, Vera Johnson says amen, and so do I. I'm glad that you brought some of your members with us to watch this program, and I really appreciate that. And I think the message is what we need to hear at the beginning of 2025. I hope that at the end of this year, well, no, I don't want to tell you what I hope. Let me ask you, because I don't know if you do resolutions, but at the end of 2025, what would be your hope? That you would look back over this past year and say, we put our mind to this, we did whatever it might be. What would be your hope for 2025?
So interestingly, at the beginning right before the new year, I go into a period of prayer and ask God kind of for a theme for our church for the new year. And the theme God gave me was very interesting, especially in our current political climate with all the challenges. But the word the Lord gave me was 2025 is the year of finally. And I was trying to figure that out. And it's the year of finally. It was a year that there will be some things that we've been waiting on, hoping for, grappling with, that we can say finally that it happened. And so I am hoping on the personal level, on the macro level, on the community level, that it's the year of finally. It's the year in which we are able to say we finally did that we finally pulled these pieces together, that we finally were able to get over that hump, that we finally able to shape and build that program, that it's the year of finally. And I say that, and I believe that sometimes your greatest purpose can be found in the greatest time of crisis, because God can pull stuff out of you in crisis that in times of ease that you're just kind of a little more complacent. But I believe that this is a season, this is a moment, this is a time in which all of us can say, what finally? So what does that mean in a very practical sense? I believe that means that one of the things we're going to be focusing on very hard at Community of Hope in the Prince George's County and even in the surrounding DMV is we're really going to be focusing on issues of inequity in our community. We're really going to be focusing on poverty. We're really going to be focusing on how does the church work with partners right now. We're excited about that we have partnership with a Hope and Action Project partnership, and we run the gun violence prevention model for Prince George's County. But also, we've got a new partnership with the Mayor Cynthia Miller in District Heights, and we're going to be doing and locking in on some work we're doing in District Heights just individually by itself with our for-profit partners, our nonprofit partners, to really be looking at how do we deal with issues of inequity, financial inequity, health inequity, mental health inequity, workforce inequities. How do we deal with that and allow there to be tangible shifts in the lives of our brothers and our sisters? I am praying that because of the work of the church, that we will do the work that starts to push the button so that folks' standard of living changes, so that folks' median income shifts, so that folks' access to health care and mental health care shifts, so that people who are on the least and the left out and on the margins of society find themselves having access to the resources to shape businesses and opportunities, and that we can, by the end of the year, say, finally, we may not achieve it all, but we can be on our way. And 2025, I believe, is the year for us to really lock in, and I don't care who's in office, it's the year for us to take care of our community and do the work we've got to do to be able to say, finally.
Well, when I listen to what you say, and I'm always, I read reports, listen to statistics a lot, and we're always disproportionately represented in all of these, with these negative numbers. So finally, we will no longer be disproportionate in a lot of the areas that you mentioned, because as my daddy said, it used to say all the time, if it is to be, it's up to me,
To me,
and no
that's
one can save us for us but us. We can be the change makers that we're looking for, correct?
I was
So
raised on that. That impacted me foundationally as a child. And I do what I do because of that legacy, because of the legacy of folks like a Marion Barry, because of that, like that crop of generals, those brilliant people
oh
who
yeah,
poured into us in such a way that we're trying to live that out right now. And so who are we, because times get hard, to now be like, oh my goodness, I can't do it. No, they told us from the cradle, if it is to be, right, it's up to
right.
me. You've got what it takes. I've heard that since a baby. And so now I'm just at a moment in which, if it is to be, it's up to me. He meant me. Okay. He meant you. He meant us.
That's
Oh,
right.
now we're in that season. And
That's
so
right.
I think that's what I'm saying. It's time for us to just move in the season that is ours. It's our moment. It's our season. It's our moment to shape legacy. It's
Finally.
our moment to leave our imprint on this region and say, finally.
Right. Well, I like that theme. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to adopt it. You'll be hearing more of it, and we're going to follow that, because I think it's certainly representative of the hope and desires of our community. And I really want to thank. I don't normally do this, but I am, because folks are shouting you out. But I want to thank Misty Dunmore and Mimi Green and Rose Johnson and Cleveland Nelson and Vera Johnson and Keisha Nelson and Lucretia Gray. Thank you for joining us today. And if you're part of the Community of Hope family, know that the Washington Informer deeply appreciates you and appreciates your pastor, Reverend Tony Lee. Thank you so much for sharing your words of encouragement and your marching orders. I mean, that's where I see it. Those are our marching orders. We've got to be the difference. We've got to take care of ourselves and help each other in doing so. So thanks a lot for
Thank
being
you
with
so much
us.
for having me. I'm always honored. And anytime you call, I come running, because you are one of my great leaders and one of the great voices for the region.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Lee. Appreciate you, and likewise.
Bless you
Have a
now. Bye.
happy new year. All
Happy New Year.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I don't know about you all, but I needed that conversation. I mean, that's what you go to church for sometimes, because there are those moments when you are working hard, you're trying to make a difference, you're being frustrated about things that may be happening at work or at the job. I mean, at the job, at home, even out in the community, and you can go and get a word from a pastor like Reverend Tony Lee, who really knows how to empower you. When people, I don't like that word empowerment sometimes, because some, as we used to have a further former editor who didn't like it, and I understand, but I think, we can be empowered through words, through encouragement. And so this is not a church service, but at the first of the year, we needed that, and we appreciate Reverend Tony Lee for being here with us to share just his vision and his hope. And finally, we will get there. We know we will. I want to move now to our next guests, who are no guests because they're part of the family here at the Washington Informer. Our managing editor, Misha Green. I think she's here with me.
Yes.
And I'm not sure who else is here, but we're going to start with you, Misha, right now, because you too. I mean, you don't have Reverend in front of your name, but you still, have a mission as it relates to the road or the path that the Washington Informer will take in 2025. And I don't know if you've gone into that moment of meditation like Reverend Lee and thought about, I always try to think of a theme for the new year. I haven't come up with one, but I don't know if you have one, or just one that you think articulates where you want to see the coverage of the Informer going in the new year.
Well, I have to say I am fired up and ready to go after hearing Reverend Lee. Pastor Lee consistently is so incredibly inspiring. But I heard you say, Miss Denise, that we're adopting that year finally. So anyway, since you're the boss, I would already be going with that. But totally, it was so incredibly inspiring to me. I think that's exactly where we need to be. My meditation really was on how we move forward into 2025 from the sort of trying year that was 2024. As a journalist, it kept us very busy, and there was a lot of really wonderful achievements. I mean, looking at some of the wonderful things that happened not only here in the district but nationwide and worldwide. I mean, our year-end edition really tries to tap into that, and one thing that we looked at was all of the amazing accomplishments of Washingtonians here, and as well as nationwide and abroad. So, for example, look at the Washingtonians who were incredibly barrier breaking and beat world records, etc., during the Olympics, down to some of the wonderful things that happened here, like remembering our Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, in so many special ways, down to the mural at the Marion Barry building. And so I think when we're looking at things like that for 2024, despite the divisive year, despite the disappointment that some folks had with the election, we are talking about powering forward. And so that has been my reflection, is how do we keep this momentum going and really take some of the disappointment and reframe it to something that pushes us, that motivates us to be a stronger community here in the district, a stronger nation, and really a stronger and more peaceful world. And so some of that work that Pastor Tony Lee talked about, such as hitting the really the nation from towards, etc., talking about some of the issues in between Israel and Palestine, and obviously the election, that's stuff that we're not forgetting about. Now that the election is passed, we're looking on how is the Black community being affected by some of the things that the new administration is hoping to accomplish. We're looking at how Black Washingtonians are navigating this new world. And we're also appreciating the unity that Washingtonians are bringing. Our story this week about the Fresh Start 5K, 11th annual that Mayor Bowser hosts every year. We've been to many before. We've covered it in the paper year after year. But what I felt was different about this year was that folks were really focused on community, togetherness, saying we don't care about what's happening necessarily at 1600 Pennsylvania in the coming weeks. I mean, we care in the sense that we're worried about it, but that we really are focused on what's happening locally and how we are a stronger, safer DC. And I appreciate that. So I think that being inspired by Pastor Lee and the year of finally, on top of saying, hey, we're moving forward, we're powering forward into this new year, is sort of the theme that I'm hoping we can tap into for 2025 and beyond.
Well, I really love that idea of power forward. I like the power and I like the forward, so that we can finally see the results of our collaborative work, to support and raise up our communities. We're putting something together here. There's a theme happening,
Yes.
And I love it. I want to bring on Lafayette Barnes, of course, my beloved eldest son, and also editor of, oh, no, I'm sorry, this is not my son.
It shocked me too.
Well, it could be. It's the son of someone. But anyway, Lafayette Barnes, who is the editor of Win Africa, a new newsletter that we will be launching in 2025. And welcome to Win TV. Misha, you want to kind of take it from here?
Well, yes, I have to say, Mr. Lafayette has been so incredibly inspiring to me as we continue planning for the year, because Win Africa, it has really been a part of, I would say, the ethos of the Washington Informer the entire time, but having an intentional push again towards coverage that uplifts the African diaspora. It has meant so much to us, Mr. Lafayette. So I first want to thank you for that. But tell us what your inspiration was behind Win Africa and some of your hopes for the newsletter.
Well, Misha, thank you so much for that. And I want to thank my lovely wife for now making me her son. So that happens when you have a son and a husband, both named Lafayette. And in fact, my father and his father were also Lafayette. So it's four of us in the family. So I can understand, why Denise would lump us all together, but it's all about the love. But getting back to your question, I first visited Africa back in the 1980s with a group called Educators to Africa. And I wanted to go because of my curiosity about the continent and realizing that the continent is made up of so many countries. I think it's 54 or 56. But more importantly, once I arrived on the soil, I realized that people on the continent looked just like me, had the same aspirations as I do. And so that started a real deep fire in my belly, if you will, to make sure that more African Americans, Africans in the diaspora know about Africa and African diaspora issues. And so when I think about Denise's father, Calvin Rolark, who, as you know, his most famous 10 words were, if it is to be, it's up to me. But he also said, no one can save us from us but us. And I realized that Wind Africa is an opportunity to connect Africans from all over the diaspora, whether we're in Washington, D.C., or whether we're in the Caribbean, or in Kenya, or Ghana, or Angola, or places in Europe, that we need to make sure that we have positive information about all of the good things that we're doing. And so that sort of, if you will, jump-started the idea, at least in my heart and my mind, to let's see how we can promote more positive news in the Washington Informer, and no greater way to do that than to have a new branch called Wind Africa, which, as you mentioned, we will be launching our monthly newsletter to talk about all kinds of issues that are pertinent to Africa.
And I know that folks may have seen little glimpse of Win Africa in the paper and online. We have a Win Africa setting on WashingtonInformer.com, as well as its own navigation to Win Africa. But tell us a little bit about what folks may have seen in Win Africa coverage in the last year.
Well, let me start off with one of my favorite Washingtonians, or DMVians, if that's a correct brother, by the name of Dr. Tony Browder. And Tony Browder, as you know, has really established himself as a expert, if you will, on Egypt. And the fact that Denise and I had the opportunity to travel with Tony Browder to Egypt, and I've gone with him twice, but just to promote what he's doing on the continent and making sure that our readers know that Tony Browder is here. He can take you to not only to the pyramids in Egypt, but also to all of the other famous places, including the southern part of Egypt, where Nubia used to be, or in the remnants of Nubia is still there. So we did a great story on Tony Browder. We also, another Washingtonian, a young sister from Southeast DC by the name of Flory Lisner. Flory is the president and CEO of the Corporate Council on Africa. And we've done stories on Corporate Council on Africa. I've actually participated in several of their conferences, whether here in the US, DC, Dallas. This year they'll be in Angola. And so just to promoting the work that she's doing, so that we know about business opportunities in Africa, and we can also support businesses from Africa who are exporting their goods and services here to the United States. And then also we did a story on another sister from Washington, Howard University graduate. Her name is Gina Page, AfricanAncestries.com. And so talking about how she's using DNA samples to connect folks like Denise and myself, and perhaps you and others, to their ethnic origins in the continent. And so we've done stories on some really unique topics that often our people don't know about. And we're going to continue to do that as we move forward. And then, of course, we want to look at ways moving forward to promote trade and investment opportunities. We want to do more tourism pieces so people can go to Africa and see, just like I saw when I first went in the 80s, that Africans look like us, relate to us, want to do business with us, and we need to tear down those barriers of misinformation and education about, why we don't want to be African or why we don't want to be American, and understand that we are who we are and we're all connected to the continent. So those are some of the things that we've talked about in the past, and we're going to do more in the future for 2025 and beyond.
Well, one of the things I wanted to just say and note, and that's one of the reasons people might ask, why are we doing a Win Africa? But when we look at the district or the DMV, we know that we have a large African diasporan community here who are not only making contributions. We've got a elected member to our
DC
Oye.
right.
Yes, Oye. I'm sorry. Yes, who is a member, who's an elected representative here in the District of Columbia. We've got several in Prince George's County. We've got a large, as I said, Ethiopian community. So there's a large community here that is active and engaged. And we hope that people on the other side will kind of get a sense of what their home folk, for lack of a better phrase, are doing here, and vice versa. How do we make those connections? So I am really excited about Win Africa. I also think I want to get in here really quickly because our time is going by so fast, Misha. We want to get Richard in because I understand he's here and ran home from the also Brooks swearing in. Richard, and who is our man on the ground in Prince George's County. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing lovely, Misha. I did my best to try and cover it. Rob is still trying to get the photos in. I got a quote also from Congressman Ivey. His press man messaged me in the middle of it saying that they'd like to give comment. So we got comment from them as well. Miss Denise, I didn't say
Awesome.
thank you yet for the Christmas bonus, but that's why my room looks a little bit different. It's not the stuff behind me. It has allowed me to get a desk and other things. So now I can sit in my main area and join Zooms instead of having to go to another room and sit in a weird chair. So thank
Yes.
you.
Well, Richard, we appreciate you so much, and so I'm glad it's because of the hard work that you all do that makes it happen. But I know you have really been working hard to cover the county. Tell us, kind of what is your perspective of Prince George's in 2025? What should we be looking out for?
Sure. 2024 was largely defined by the Senate campaign, the primary between Elsa Brooks and Congressman David Trone, along with the general election between her and Governor Larry Hogan. That was probably the largest overall story during the past year. There was some discussion on budget issues. There was maybe secondary as like a state political entity. And then we've also been able to cover Prince George's and Maryland's growth in Black business to Prince George's, I believe, is now the largest driver of small business growth in the state of Maryland. We've been covering that every week with stories on business openings, business closings, Black businesses offering new things that other places aren't offering, and people giving their perspective on how the county could better operate with businesses. In the upcoming year, I think the primary stories are going to be the Prince George's County Executive Special Election, along with the accompanying District 5 special election, where we've already talked about the field of candidates and included links on the website to every different candidate's website, which no other newspaper has done in the region. Also, the county and the state's budget issues. As I talked about on election night and thereafter, the Trump administration's plans, especially around government jobs and government spending, are going to have a ruinous effect on the local economy on top of there's an existing $3 billion shortfall at the state level. There was something along the lines of a $130 million shortfall locally that is undoubtedly going to grow. What is the state going to do? What is Governor Moore going to do in order to raise taxes and or cut services? So far, we know that there's an interest in legalizing alcohol, beer and wine in grocery stores. That's the first idea that's been laid on the table. I expect that bill to pass. Yes, there's also talk about this, the Prince George's County school system having a budget issue. And at the larger level, the Blueprint for Education Kerwin plan that has been talked about for several years now. There is now open discussion of that plan being either parsed back, delayed, other ways of slowing its implementation because the state simply does not have the amount of money that they expected. A state official described the money that came in from the federal government for COVID as causing like a sugar high of unexpectedly high spending. And now that that money has dried up, along with expected budget shortfalls because of government cuts by the Trump administration and by congressional Republicans, these issues are only going to worsen. I still expect in the next year for there to be quite a bit of discussion regarding county events like the film festival that we've covered, county fairs, sporting events, business openings. There's still going to be positive things in Prince George's County that we're going to be covering, but the special elections and the budget are the predominant issues I expect of the next 6 to 8 months in Prince George's County in Maryland.
Well, it sounds like your hands are full, your computer's going to be busy, your fingers are going to be working, and that we're going to have some great stories coming out of the county. And I really, really am excited about that. I want to, also bring on, because of the time factor, I know he's been holding for a while, and just to talk about the family of journalists that we have. I know it looks like we lost Mr. Barnes, but also, is Sam with us? No, okay. All right. So, and Stacy's not with us. Okay.
But I will plug that Sam has a great story.
Good.
In the Washington Informer, on WashingtonInformer.com, as well as in the newsletter today. So if you're not a subscriber, this is what you're missing out on. about the council swearing in that not only talks about the new District of Columbia Council and what to expect in Council Period 26, but it's also an in-depth look at Council Member Trayon White, who's the Ward 8 council member, talking a little bit about what happened to him last year and really trying to talk to his constituents and say, hey, I know that I messed up, but really trying to turn over a new leaf, not only for himself, but really to help others see the good person that he is working to be. So make sure you tune into Sam's council report this week, and coming in soon in 2025, you'll get a Collins Council Report newsletter. So again, you want to be a subscriber if you're not already.
All right, that's really great for sharing that great news. I think we'll make a family affair out of this because I want to bring in Rafael Ulloma, who is the deputy publisher and executive vice president of communications for El Tiempo Latino. We always cross paths at events and covering events and what have you, but we've never had a conversation. And so, Rafael, welcome to Let's Talk.
Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for inviting me. And hi, everyone. It's really great to be here with you.
Tell us a little bit about El Tiempo. El Tiempo.
Yes, El Tiempo has been around for 34 years now. Started in 1991, so this year will be 34 years in May. It started as an independent paper, was part of the Washington Post for a little bit, for a good time, I would say. And then in 2017 is when I come into El Tiempo Latino. We bought it, a group. I'm from Ecuador, but I was living in Boston, Massachusetts for a long time, and I was working there at El Planeta, that is a local paper in Massachusetts. So that group of El Planeta bought El Tiempo Latino from the Washington Post. So it became independent again after being with the Post. So we've been focusing in taking the El Tiempo Latino into the digital era since 2017, of course. The paper was already online and everything, but believe it or not, under the Post, it didn't had much resources dedicated to become a digital first newspaper. We still print. We're weekly. We're there every week, but we are now in all the digital channels. We have a newsletter that is daily. We have several newsletters, one that is local, one that is national, a political newsletter. Those are the daily newsletters. We have a financial newsletter that is weekly and a health newsletter that is weekly. So also we something new that we started basically last year was a new dedicated channel for the local news, because we were finding that sometimes when we were growing nationally, the local news got a little bit lost in all that flurry of national content. So we dedicated a new social media channel. It's called Tiempo DC. You can find it on for now on Instagram mainly. That is dedicated to DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland 100%.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the conversations, Rafael, because I think we all can talk about the struggles of trying to keep, our media companies alive. And the point is, you've done a great job at it. And it's a Spanish language newspaper too, correct?
Yes, correct. It's in Spanish. Like we were 100% in Spanish, except for couple of times a year than when we do something bilingual, but yeah, Spanish 98% of the time.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, Misha, Richard, you can jump in anytime if you have any questions for Rafael. But I know, go ahead, Misha.
I'm just so inspired, and again, hi Rafael. It's so good to see you. We all, Rafael and I tend to like get seated at the same table at events and things like that. But it's awesome to talk, work, and shop. I'm very curious. Just as we go into this new administration, El Tiempo's approach, we were just talking about sort of what our goal is for the Washington Informer in 2025. And I know that there's the Latinx community has a lot of concerns going into this year and this new administration. And so I wonder how you all are staying true to the journalism and telling the full stories while also really addressing the concerns of many of your readers.
Right. No, it's a topic that I think we can talk a couple of hours about
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
It was like I remember like before the elections. In I don't know if it happens to you, but before the elections, when you were talking with colleagues from different media, the joke that was kind of not so much of a joke sometimes was that some people were saying if Trump wins, I stop being journalist and I open a restaurant in Greece, or they were trying to go somewhere else because we'll be all busy. Like we all know, it is traditionally a very unpredictable cycle of coverage. If you want to talk in the traditional way of covering news, is unpredictable, like 24/7 cycle of coverage. But okay, what we're going to do, we're not the Washington Post, we're not the New York Times, we don't have like 700 journalists dedicated to cover Trump, right? So I think like the principles of covering this Trump, the second Trump administration, will be very similar to the principles of we used to cover the first one. I think like I like to use a phrase that Marty Baron, when he was at the Washington Post, used, and I think it's a very good phrase or principle that we can all use, and sometimes when we are about to to become too emotional or too or like too invested in something that we believe in, because sometimes Trump administration would throw us some curveballs that are like totally against things we believe in. But we need to remind sometimes the reporters that we are at work, not at war. Martin Barrow
Mhm.
said that to his reporters. So I think that is important to know that our job is to keep the communities we cover informed, to keep the communities we cover aware of what's happening, and uh, or reporters cannot be like activists, right? Like they cannot go to say, oh, we'll post that, like that, but they need to be informing, which is I know sometimes tough for the people doing the job. But what we can do is we can amplify the voices of the people who are doing activism, and that's exactly what we did and what we are going to do this year. So there are many organizations that are working already. They are preparing. We don't have a crystal, no one has a crystal ball, so we don't know exactly what will happen in the immigration topic, for example, that is important for many members of the Latino community. But we can prepare. So we can, the organizations are preparing, like the people are saying, hey, if you don't have your documents in order and something you can do to put them in order before January 20, let's do it right now. So we can give orientation to members of our community where to go to find the help they need, where to go to find the resources they need, where to go to do, if they are in a position where they can do where they work and volunteer, they can do activism for any cause they believe, where you can go to be of help for that organization or that group. So that is 100% what we can do from our side to help the community in that sense. You know,
Raphael, if I could jump in really quick,
yeah,
because when we talk about immigration, of course, most of us always think about um, the immigrants from certain places that are coming into the country, but we also hear stories that there are African immigrants and immigrants from all over that are also crossing through those borders. And it's a topic I know we have not really focused on a lot, but we probably will with the threat of this massive deportation. We don't know what massive looks like. And so I think what you are doing, what you all are going to do, even though we might have to use Misha to interpret, to really, it causes us to pay more attention to a publication like yours, to
Exactly.
hear the stories that you're telling about what is or is not happening with people. I know on our side, we're looking at the whole issue of DEI, abandoning DEI and what that means and how, that's impacting people. People have told me recently, you all have got to stop using the word black, because it's a red flag. How do we do that when that's what we are, and that's what we focused on? So I see this as an opportunity to build a bridge between, our publications and our communities because there's the topics cross, us culturally. And so I know that folks are going to be reaching out and looking and reading El Tiempo to say, how do I, make it through these times? And it's interesting. I would be even curious to know what communities in the DMV might be most impacted by this uh, this threat of massive deportation, because we have large Hispanic communities in DC, but then there's uh, Hyattsville, Maryland. I mean, those certain places in Maryland, Richard, that where there are large communities. I mean, what are you going to be keeping your eyes on, Rafael?
For us, we are gonna first, what you say is very important. Like we don't know exactly who are gonna be impacted and who are gonna be not impacted by this, or at least in the first phase, right? Like the threat is like massive deportation, so that's a big word, massive. But then, like we have seen Trump himself saying that DACA recipients, the Dreamers, might be okay, and then like that we don't know what will happen with TPS, and TPS is a designation that covers people from several countries. So what we're going to focus first is, of course, in the resources for people who are under no program or no designation at all. So people who are just plainly undocumented, and because they might be the first targeted in raids, or you have that is very important, because that opens the door for, like, yeah, they are directly they are directly a target from the new administration. But what about like the people who are not the administration? Like they can be a target from scammers. Like there could be like fake lawyers, so to call
Oh,
notarios,
yes.
like or unlicensed legal professionals. Say, hey, I can put your papers in order before Trump comes. You just need to give me $5,000 and I'll fix everything. And it's not true. So they can be targets from the fake lawyers, from just people who feel empowered to harass them. So I think like they are the more vulnerable. So that is a population that, if we need to do a prediction, they might be the first ones to be like a target of the deportations. So I think like that would be our primary concern as people who are vulnerable. So the coverage should focus probably more on them at the beginning, I think, for most of the media covering immigration.
Right, right, right. Well, I know that we all have tough jobs ahead. Richard, is there anything you wanted to add to this conversation?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay. All right. Well, Rafael, I'm really glad that you were able to take some time to join us. We don't want this to be the last time,
No, of
because as
course.
we go through this year, there's a lot that our communities will depend on us for. And like you said, there's not a lot going on in the area of local news. So I'm glad that you all came up with El Tiempo DC, and of course the surrounding area, because we are a brother's keeper. So we need to be concerned about what's happening to all of us in the
Sure.
DMV. Any other topic that you wanted to discuss before we jump off?
I just want to add one more thing, and I think like opinion pieces, from members of our communities will be more important than ever, because that's a space in the opinion page is a space where like the people can give their perspectives, right? Perspective will be very important. You can find the news everywhere right now. Like, you have the social media, like AI is giving you news. Of course, our own reporters are reporting the news, but there's a space that is more important than ever, like under an administration like Trump's administration. There is the perspective of the people living the threat of like the deportation, living like struggles with like diversity and inclusion, living different scenarios in their lives and from their own experiences and professions. So I think like that is very important. So I think like we all will give more space to that, probably to our opinion pages might grow like under this year under this administration.
Right,
Yes.
right. You're. I think you're, and more people are writing. We're getting more opinions coming in, and we welcome those opinions, and I'm sure you do too. Let me ask you, if someone wants to write an opinion for El Tiempo, does it have to be because you are a Spanish language newspaper? What are your requirements?
We welcome opinions in English too. Like what we do, if we want to publish it, we translate it. So we use
Okay,
a translator to translate it. Of course, if like the author can give it to us in Spanish, is better because they have more control on the translation.
right.
But we're Denise, Misha, Richard, you are all welcome to write opinion pieces. We can translate them here, or like any member of of your community who write to your newspapers or your media, and you think like those are pieces that could be shared, like, and vice versa. If we have something in Spanish that we think might be interesting for you, we can also pitch it and say, hey, like someone wrote about this topic, I think would be good to have it in English, like so we can share it.
I know
Thank
one of
you.
the big issues, Misha, in DC is why haven't we had a Hispanic elected official
Right.
uh, in the District of Columbia? I mean, it's been a while since at least we had a school board member once upon a time, but it's been a while, and the community is pretty widespread here in the district. So that's one of those questions. If people want to, uh, subscribe or get more information about El Tiempo Latino, where would they go?
I think a good point to start is the website, eltiempolatino.com. So we
Okay.
have there a section for subscribing to the newsletters. It's free to follow us on Instagram. Tiempo DC is for local, and El Tiempo Latino is in all the other media for El Tiempo Latino, the wide national news. So you can follow us there, find us there. So we will be happy to hear from you.
Yay.
I have
Well,
one,
I,
I
I
have
just
one
have to.
note before
Oh,
you go. There's a lot of like there's a lot of small municipalities in Prince George's County, and including like North Brentwood, Cottage City, Edmonston. A lot of those are going to have municipal elections in the next year and a half or so, and I think for many of them, including the couple that allow undocumented people to vote, those are going to be a large referendum on how the citizens have viewed how the town and its administration have been able to help people during whatever the mass deportation process is going to look like. That is one way of looking at them that's going to be a possibility in the next year and a half or so. And if you give the email to somebody on our team, I can try and give you the date of when those will be.
Thank you so much. Thank you for like putting those in a radar. Like we need to be like covering those. Thank you.
Because a
thank
lot
you.
of those, there's no coverage whatsoever. People in the town don't know there'll be an election.
Yeah. Well, I
Wow.
just have to
Okay.
say, Feliz Año, Rafael. And I just got a message from my daddy in Colombia, in Medellin, who has been asking this collaboration to happen forever. So, and I'm like, Dad, I know Rafael, like it's gonna happen. So he's already sent a screenshot of us on and everything, and it's so excited.
Thank
So
you. Muchas gracias. Feliz
muchas
año
gracias.
también.
Feliz año. Ciao, ciao.
Well, folks, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. I want to thank all of you all for joining us. And of course, Reverend Tony Lee, Lafayette Barnes, for being with us on our show today. And Rafael, I wish you and El Tiempo great success in 2025. We know we'll continue to see you out there on the beats.
Thank you so
And
much. Thank you,
everybody
Denise.
that's watching, I want everybody to have a happy new year. Make sure that you tune in next week on Friday from noon to 1. We're going to have more great news. And we just wish you a happy new year. Finally. Take care.
Yes.
Where did you come to get